Hello and welcome to Ozark Anglican. This is a ministry of Lake Anglican Church in Osage Beach, Missouri. We're going to be looking at Joshua chapter 3. The title of today's message is I Will Exalt You. And there's a bit of a spin on that, because normally when we say I will exalt you, we are speaking to God, but in today's story, God speaks to his servant Joshua and tells him, I will exalt you. Joshua 3, verse 7, the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Now, I had a friend when I lived briefly in Queens, New York, who had an altercation at a local diner. This was back when diners were still quite a thing in that part of the country. And he had to have the manager come over. And the manager was a very, very tall man in his prime. And my friend was a man in his 70s, I would say pretty well past his prime, and about a foot shorter than this manager. Well, the location of this diner was right across the street from the room where a local gangster, very well known at the time, used to play cards with his friends. Now, when it became obvious to my friend that the manager was not interested in helping him with the bill that had been mismanaged, he stepped forward into the man's space and he said, do you know my name? He said, my name isn't Johnny or Jimmy or Jerry. My name is Vito. Do you understand me? Well, he did understand him, and immediately the manager made the bill what it needed to be. And I don't know if you understand what was happening there, but the manager understood the meaning of that Italian name and immediately changed his tune. Well, Joshua is a name in the Bible that means something. It doesn't mean what Vito meant, but Joshua is a combination of the Hebrew word for Israel's covenant God, put together with the Hebrew word which has to do with salvation. And so the name Joshua means something like the Lord saves. Joshua 3:7 is a kind of a programmatic verse in which the one who ultimately is the Savior tells the one who hears echoes of that reality anytime someone speaks his name that he is about to exalt him. Now, normally, God's people exalt God the way little boys exalt their earthly fathers, telling of all their marvelous characteristics. At least when I was a boy, we did. My dad has bigger muscles than your dad, and we would brag about how big and how strong our fathers were. This is one aspect, the human aspect of worship. From the divine side, worship is what happens when God meets with his people. But from the human side, when we think of the verb worship as something that we do, it is a human showing forth of God's praise. It is a human expression of God's admirable qualities. Since his admirable qualities are infinite, his exaltation can't be overdone. when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, and we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun, we will still not have scratched the surface when it comes to proclaiming the fullness of what is worshipful or worthy of worship about God. Now, this is a remarkable statement then, when God, who cannot be adequately exalted, expresses his intention to exalt Joshua in the eyes of his people Israel. Now, please don't miss the reason, the precise and only reason that Moses had been able to save Israel from Pharaoh is the same reason that Joshua will be able to rescue Israel from their enemies across the Jordan. And the reason that Moses was effective and the reason that Joshua will be effective is because God is with him. Now, in this chapter of Joshua, the way that God is going to demonstrate that he's with Joshua is by doing something identical to what he had done through Moses, virtually identical. It is going to be a recapitulation of the crossing of the Red Sea, which is repeated now in the crossing of the Jordan River, no less the crossing of the Jordan River at flood stage. Well, the miracle then demonstrates that God is with Joshua. Okay, let's see if we can cancel this whole thing.